Z Show.
Glenn Beck is a speaker at the National Rifle Association convention. They have Glenn Beck speaking there. Glenn Beck who makes stuff up. I'm telling you, Glenn Beck is a liar. Glenn Beck mongers hysteria. Glenn Beck is very much like Alex Jones, only with a softer delivery. Here's the first part of what he said about this shooting in the Houston airport, and I want you to pay attention in light of what we know from reading these articles.
Millions of regular, ordinary Americans understand the times that we live in. I don't know if you've heard the latest news. Broke to me about an hour ago. Started out as something entirely different when I first heard the news, and I'm telling you, this is a sign of the times we're living in. I want you to understand I'm going to tell you a news story first. I'm not saying this to you. I'm saying this to the simpletons that are in the rest of the media.
Okay, first off, here's Glenn Beck. He is separating himself. I'm Mr. Know-It-All, and everyone else who disagrees or criticizes me for taking a guess and coming up with crap off the top of my head that may or may not be true is a simpleton.
I want you to understand I'm going to tell you a news story first. I'm not saying this to you. I'm saying this to the simpletons that are in the rest of the media.
Right, the rest of the media are simpletons because they don't know what I say I know, but I don't know what I know. I'm taking a guess.
I want you to understand I'm going to tell you a news story first. I'm not saying this to you. I'm saying this to the simpletons that are in the rest of the media.
Then Glenn Beck characterizes his guess that he is about to pull out of his sphincter as things we should be looking for. This is all part of constructing a conspiracy theory. This is how Glenn Beck does his crap.
The simpletons that are in the rest of the media who will report Glenn Beck said this is what happened. Let me tell you first the news story, then I'm going to give you my opinion on what I believe we should be looking for here.
Look, just because Glenn Beck says, I'm going to give you my opinion, does not mean that he gets a pass for making stuff up and filling people's heads with rubbish.
The simpletons that are in the rest of the media who will report Glenn Beck said this is what happened. Let me tell you first the news story, then I'm going to give you my opinion on what I believe we should be looking for here.
Okay, what Glenn Beck is doing here is making an excuse for what he is about to do. He's going to give you a little bit of a news story. A very small portion, much less than I just gave you, and I admit I've got more because it's the next day. But Glenn Beck gives a very small portion of a news report and then goes off into fantasy land. He's delivering fiction. His commentary here is about what he thinks might have happened in light of his belief that everything that's happening is a mirror of what happened in Nazi Germany. And I'm not kidding. This is what he bases everything on.
The simpletons that are in the rest of the media who will report Glenn Beck said this is what happened. Let me tell you first the news story, then I'm going to give you my opinion on what I believe we should be looking for here. A man went into the airport here in Houston just about an hour and a half ago and fatally shot himself to death. He had an AR-15 with him. He was at a security checkpoint, Houston International Airport. Reports indicate the body was found in the lobby of Terminal B at the airport. Houston police say an air marshal at the field fired at the suspect, missed. Man then dropped the AR, picked up a pistol, and shot himself. That's what they're reporting now. That doesn't make sense to me. Now, here's what my sources are telling me, along with my opinion on what we should be looking for. I have been looking and fearing moments like this. If it's not this one, it will happen in the coming days.
Okay, see, right there, once again, Glenn Beck, I've been telling people on my show, on Facebook, Glenn Beck is about fear. The fear he feels and the fear that he is imparting to his listeners.
I have been looking and fearing moments like this. If it's not this one, it will happen in the coming days.
Glenn Beck deals in fear-mongering. This proves it.
I have been looking and fearing moments like this. If it's not this one, it will happen in the coming days.
Yeah, it will happen in the coming days, says Glenn Beck. I predict whatever he thinks is going to happen, whatever he fears is not going to happen, and he's never going to go back and tell you that he was wrong. And I don't like to do predictions, but that's my prediction. And I'm not going to call it a prediction because I don't like doing predictions. I'm going to call it my theory. Because that's the theory that I have, and it's mine.
That is my theory. It is mine and belongs to me, and I own it and what it is too.
That's it, is it?
Spot on.
This theory of yours appears to have hit the nail on the head.
And it's mine.
Yes.
Good Lord. Glenn Beck, man. I'm telling you. And we haven't even gotten to the best of this audio yet, where he starts making stuff up right off the top of his head. And by top of his head, you know that I mean pulling it out of his sphincter.
I have been looking and fearing moments like this. If it's not this one, it will happen in the coming days. My law enforcement sources here in Houston are telling my team that this man is from out of town. He is staying at a hotel. The police are now searching his hotel room. His intent, according to my sources, was to take out as many people as he could at the airport with an AR-15. First of all, the idea that this is a coincidence, that this is happening at the airport with the NRA while they're having there, is too much to believe. If I were a journalist, well, let me correct that, if I were an honest journalist, I would be looking for these connections. Look for the connections of who this man is and any connection he might have to the Uber left. I believe that, and only because I have been looking for this.
Boy, I tell you, here's Glenn Beck. Only because he's been looking for a conspiracy. The all-knowing, all-wise Glenn Beck and his crystal ball tell him to be on the lookout for this, whatever this is.
Only because I have been looking for this.
And then, of course, only because he's looking for something like this, whatever this is, it gives him the license, it gives him the wisdom, it gives him the license to make all kinds of guesses. Farcical fiction and fantasy. Right out of the sphincter of Glenn Beck.
Only because I have been looking for this, I believe this man could fall into the category of somebody who has lost his job, is depressed, etc., etc.
Okay, look, it's no great prediction, it's no great insight when Glenn Beck says that this guy might be depressed. Of course he is. He walked into an airport with a gun and got himself shot dead. No normal person does this. Of course he was depressed. Of course his life was messed up. We don't need Glenn Beck to tell us that this guy's life was meaningless.
I believe this man could fall into the category of somebody who has lost his job, is depressed, etc., etc. Somebody comes in off to the side, winds him up, says, "Oh, you should make a statement."
Now this is all pure horse hockey.
Horse hockey, buffalo chips, bull cookies, road apples, mule fritters, cow cookies, pony pucks, Carolina cow pies, pigeon pellets.
But that's what Beck is doing here. He's feeding people nonsense. He has no idea what's going on here. I looked it up. Did he talk about hotels yet? I don't think so. I don't want to get ahead of myself.
Somebody comes in off to the side, winds him up, says, "Oh, you should make a statement. You should make a statement." I believe that's probably, I shouldn't say that. I believe it is a very good chance that that's what happened.
Okay, he does believe that that's probably what happened. In his mind, he pulled himself back a little bit, but that's what he believes happened. Glenn Beck lives in fantasy land.
Somebody comes in off to the side, winds him up, says, "Oh, you should make a statement. You should make a statement." I believe that's probably, I shouldn't say that. I believe it is a very good chance that that's what happened. He then gets to the airport. He realizes, it's pretty clarifying, I would imagine, when you kill people. He realizes that's not who I am. He shoots in the air, drops the AR. The air marshals come. He realizes there's no way out. He shoots himself.
Once again, Glenn Beck is guessing. He's reading the guy's mind now. This is amazing. This is completely irresponsible. Glenn Beck has no idea what this guy was thinking. Now, you could take an educated guess, because we all know what human nature is, but it would only be a guess. And I realize I am repeating myself a bit here, but it is irresponsible to take your audience, which, Glenn Beck's audience really worships the guy. They say they don't, but they really think a lot of him. And so when he says this, they consider him to be some kind of expert and that, well, he must be right.
He realizes that's not who I am. He shoots in the air, drops the AR. The air marshals come. He realizes there's no way out. He shoots himself.
Now, Glenn Beck has no information at all that indicates any of this at the time. And still today, we don't know exactly what was motivating the guy. All of that information is going to come out over a period of days.
He realizes that's not who I am. He shoots in the air, drops the AR. The air marshals come. He realizes there's no way out. He shoots himself. If I were an honest journalist, I would find out where these guns came from. Were they purchased or were they illegal?
Now here's Glenn Beck coming up with the most obvious of suggestions, telling the news media that here's what you should investigate. Well, obviously they're going to.
If I were an honest journalist, I would find out where these guns came from. Were they purchased or were they illegal?
Well, duh. Of course they're going to report. If this guy had the gun, if he had a permit, or if he got the gun recently, or if he's had the guns for a long time. Oh, brother. Now, here we go with the false flag moment. Glenn Beck calling this a freaking setup.
If I were an honest journalist, I would find out where these guns came from. Were they purchased or were they illegal? Oh, if they're illegal, I could guarantee you this is a setup.
Glenn Beck is declaring. He's not just, what did he say earlier, that he was giving you his opinion? Well, his opinion is that he, Glenn Beck, can guarantee you that this was a setup if this guy was holding guns that were illegal. That if this guy did not have a permit for those guns, Glenn Beck is guaranteeing that this was a setup. And whatever setup means, we don't really know for sure. But again, I can tell you that what Glenn Beck is talking about is a false flag, government Obama-approved setup.
Oh, if they're illegal, I could guarantee you this is a setup. Someone knows history. I do. At least I know enough history to know about the burning of the Reichstag. Let's say a prayer of thanks that at least this man came to his senses before he actually killed anyone but himself.
All right, well, I am thankful that no innocent people were hurt, but come on. We have no idea that this guy came to his senses, quote unquote. He came to his senses and shot himself. What? Holy mackerel, Glenn. Quickly, I want to touch on the hotel thing. Glenn Beck made a big deal about this guy being from out of town. He's not that far out of town. He's from Beaumont, Texas, which is 88 miles away from Houston, Texas, an hour and 20 minutes. I drive an hour and 20 minutes to go out to dinner. It's not a big deal. He may have had a hotel, but he didn't have to. He didn't need a hotel. Maybe he came in the night before and went out and had a nice dinner. Maybe went to a strip club like a terrorist. But there's no terror. I don't want to be misunderstood here. There is no terrorist tie so far.
My law enforcement sources here in Houston are telling my team that this man is from out of town. He is staying at a hotel. The police are now searching his hotel room.
And I'll put a map in the show notes so you can see that Beaumont, Texas is not that far away. So I don't know why Glenn was making a big deal about him coming from out of town. Like that's the conspiracy, because only people who are part of a conspiracy come from out of town to shoot people. It's all a bunch of hogwash.
Horse hockey, buffalo chips, bull cookies, road apples, mule fritters, cow cookies, pony pucks, Carolina cow pies, pigeon pellets.
Yeah, and that too.
The Jimmy Z Show.